As many of you know, I recently sold our 2021 Ford Mustang Mach E. It's gone off to a new family in Southern California, and now it's time to introduce its replacement. That's right, I finally put my money where my mouth is, and I ordered a 2022 Kia Ev6. This is one of the newest EVs on sale in the United States. It has a range, as I purchased, of 274 miles. As you can see, it has Kia's new remote parking feature, although this parking feature will not parallel park the Ev6 when you're outside the vehicle. It will just go forwards and backwards for tighter parking spots. But let's talk about why I chose the Ev6 over a decent number of the competition. To be honest, I was very torn between the Ev6 and the Hyundai Ioniq 5, and when it came right down to it, availability was a large part of my decision-making process. The Ev6 was a little bit easier to find on the ground. I also think that this particular design is a little bit more my flavor rather than the sort of grown-up Golf look that we find in the Ioniq 5. But the two vehicles are very closely related, and both of them are excellent new EVs for 2022. They share basically the same battery technology, identical motor units, and a lot of the battery and control systems are very, very similar between the two vehicles, as are the electronic systems on the inside. The Ev6 is the more dramatically styled of the trio of new EVs coming from South Korea. The next one is going to be the Genesis EV, which looks really nothing like this or the Ioniq 5, but again shares a lot of the same technologies. Up front, we have definitely a very different look than we've found in Kia EVs before, and a very different look than the last Kia EV that I purchased. I actually had a 2016 Soul EV way back when, and it looked nothing like this. And to be perfectly honest, my experience in the Soul EV didn't exactly inform my decision to buy an Ev6 because really a lot has changed since 2016. I'll talk about that in future videos as well. Of course, the most direct competitor for the Ev6 is the Tesla Model Y. Now, why didn't I get a Tesla? To be honest, I was very torn there as well because the Model Y is an absolutely excellent option in this segment. This is theoretically a compact crossover, and the price tag is not too far off. This particular model was around $56,000. Again, we'll dive into that in future videos, but logically you could get a Model Y for around the same price. Now, the big factor for me at least was the tax credit. This still qualifies for a $7,500 federal tax credit, effectively making this significantly less expensive than the Tesla Model Y. We also have quite fast DC fast charging speeds in this vehicle. Very much like the Ioniq 5, this will fast charge at a peak rate of over 250 kW, and it will sustain a faster DC fast charging rate than you'll find in a Model Y. So for road trips, etc., this is going to be a little bit quicker. And the range in the Ev6 is definitely very good, but it suffers from some practicality downsides versus that Tesla Model Y. And you can see that right here in this area. The roofline is a little bit lower than the Ioniq 5 and also a little bit lower than the Model Y also, but this has a very distinctive bell shape to the body right back here in the rear that really pinches the greenhouse in, gives this better aerodynamics than the Ioniq 5, which is part of why range is longer in the Ev6, but it cuts down on rear seat practicality. There's a little bit less room back there, and cargo practicality in the rear. So you will find a bigger cargo area in the Model Y. Now, I think the Ev6's cargo area is well suited to my needs. We do have a little bit of underfloor storage here, but you will find more cargo capacity in a Mach E or the Model Y or the Ioniq 5. The one thing that you'll find in the Mustang Mach E and the Model Y, but not really in the Ev6, is the much beloved front trunk. We do, of course, have a small storage area here, but I wouldn't really describe this as a front trunk. Instead, this is a storage area where you can keep things like your EVSE or your Tesla tap or some other small accessories like that. Personally, I don't find this to be a problem because it does result in space efficiency for the Ev6. This is shorter than it would be if it had a functional front trunk. You can see this hood is really very, very short. And the short hood really adds to the futuristic styling in the Ev6, which is again one of the things that I really like about this. The next few reasons I chose the Ev6 over some of the competition have to do with one another. This is one of the more efficient new EVs on sale in the United States. Efficiency in real-world driving in the Ev6 rivals what we see from Tesla, although in the EPA scores you'll notice this is a little bit lower. That's likely due to the way that Tesla calculates their fuel efficiency numbers versus the way every other EV maker currently in the US does. If you want to know more about that, there's going to be a separate video on that particular topic. But bottom line, this battery pack is about 23% smaller than the battery that we find in the Mustang Mach E, but the range is nearly identical. 274 miles of range in this, about 277 miles in the new 2022 Mach E, and if you had a 2021 like I did, it would be 270 miles, so 4 miles less than this model. And that's despite the fact that this Ev6 comes standard with 255 width tires, not 225 tires like you find on that Mach E. Obviously, aerodynamics is a portion of that really pinched in rear styling back there, the smaller dimensions, but also the lighter curb weight from having a smaller battery pack. Then there's the motor designs themselves. It appears that these new motors that Hyundai and Kia are using in their EVs are more efficient, and we have a mechanical front axle disconnect feature that gives many of the same benefits as the disconnect feature that we find in some pickup trucks and large SUVs. The Ioniq 5 and the EV6 are the first mainstream electric vehicles to support native 800-volt architectures and 800-volt DC fast charging. The very first vehicle was, of course, the Porsche Taycan. And a lot of the benefits that we see when charging that Taycan rain right down here to the EV6. This has an incredibly fast charge rate. Going from 10% to 80% under the right conditions will take just 18 minutes. More impressive than that, however, in my own testing, going from 5% to 100% battery charge in this or the Ioniq 5 will take just 40 minutes. That's actually 5 minutes shorter than taking a Mustang Mach E from 10% to 80%. That means you gain range faster in this if you need to road trip and you need all 274 miles of range to get you to the next destination. That's going to take about 40 minutes in here. It's going to take well over an hour in a Mach E. A situation that is perhaps a little bit more common would be adding maybe 100 miles of range. That is going to be significantly faster in this. It would take only about 5 or 10 minutes to add 100 miles of range, depending on your state of charge when you start charging. And in a Mach E, that's going to take at least 20 to perhaps 30 minutes of charging. There's a big difference when it comes to charging. This is also one of the new crop of EVs that supports vehicle-to-load functionality. If I open the charging door back here, I could plug in this little module that actually comes with the EV6, and this would allow you to connect a 15 amp 120 volt load to the EV6. You simply plug it in right back there. There's a power button right here. You turn it on, the car automatically knows that it's plugged in, and then we'll start supplying power to this outlet. One thing to note, however, that I managed to forget when I went to go pick up my very own EV6, and I knew this in advance, is that the EV6 does not come with an EVSE or the charge cord. You actually have to supply your own. Kia says the reason they did that is because a lot of EV intenders now in the market are on their second or third EV. They already have charging infrastructure at home or where they work, and they thought it would just save the shopper a few $100. And it would give the shopper the ability to choose their own adventure, I guess you'd say, with the charge cord. Now, I managed to forget that, so I have not been able to plug this in at home yet. However, I did stop for a quick DC fast charge because this was not completely full from the dealer, and I wanted to get it up to about 90%. So I stopped for a DC fast charge session. It only took 10 minutes, and I got this puppy up from about 60% right up to 85%. It really was charging fairly quickly there. I also like the fact that this little charge door is electrified. Let me know what you think about that down there in the comment section. Back on the subject of efficiency, nestled under this hood, we have a heat pump. That's another reason I chose the EV6 over some of the competition. For instance, the Mach E does not use a heat pump for heating the cabin. Heat pumps are considerably more efficient than resistive element heaters, and Kia is no stranger to heat pump technology. They actually featured it on the Soul EV way back when. So Kia's actually been in the heat pump business for quite some time with their electric vehicles, as has the parent company Hyundai. Interestingly enough, Tesla is actually a pretty recent comer to the heat pump party. The Model Y was the first Tesla to use one, and now it's spreading across the lineup, with good reason. Heat pumps use maybe 1/3 to 1/4 of the energy to heat the cabin in the winter, in mild climates, or in cold climates than a resistive element heater. What that means to you is that your winter and your summer range are going to be much closer together in an EV with a heat pump, whether it's a Tesla Model Y or an EV6 or Ioniq 5, etc., than if you chose an EV without a heat pump. Now, it is optional in the EV6, and that's something that I wish Kia would address in future updates. If you do not get the all-wheel drive system, which is the dual motor setup here, then you don't get the heat pump. The theory there is that you're probably living in a climate where the heat pump might not do you much good, but even up here in Northern California, where honestly the winters are very, very mild, the heat pump is still going to have a noticeable impact on your range and efficiency. I'll talk about this a little bit more in upcoming videos, but efficiency is critical for modern EVs. The more efficient an EV is, the smaller the battery pack it needs to go the same range. Therefore, the better it's going to handle, the shorter it's going to stop, the faster it's going to accelerate, the shorter it's going to take to charge the vehicle, whether you're DC fast charging or AC charging. And honestly, most people are AC charging their EV. So going from 0 to 100% AC charging, this EV is going to be much faster than a Mach E or something with a bigger battery pack. It's going to take considerably less time than some of the new EV trucks that are coming on the scene. For instance, a Hummer EV, its battery pack is about 3 times the size of this. So with relatively similar range, depending on what you're doing in the two vehicles, this would take 1/3 the time to charge versus something like that Hummer EV. Now, I'm not saying that the EV6 is a Hummer EV competitor. I'm just putting putting the importance of efficiency into perspective. Well, let me know what you think about all that down there in the comment section below. And of course, there are going to be a number of videos coming up soon featuring this new 2022 EV6. Let me know if you think I got it wrong and if I should have picked something else down there in the comment section as well. Again, keep in mind the Model Y, it did not come with a federal tax credit, and this does. The Model Y's price tag has been ramping up pretty rapidly over the last year. It's gone up about 20% in terms of its price tag. It's up around $59,000 starting now, and this fully loaded was about $56,000. Obviously, we have the $7,500 tax credit as well. That makes this significantly less expensive, and that was definitely a big factor in my decision-making process. Now, speaking of the Model Y, if you're looking for an alternative to the Model Y Performance with the same sort of DC fast charging capability we find in this model, theoretically, that's coming up a little bit later this year. Kia has promised a nearly 600 horsepower version of the EV6. That's going to be the EV6 GT, and that is likely going to be on sale sometime either late 2022 or early 2023. As always, hit that subscribe button. Find me over at facebook.com/AlexNautos, Instagram, all those other social places, and I'll see everybody next week.